What's good, everyone? What is good? Welcome to an episode, of course, of Opinionated with yours truly. I am Resla. I hope that you guys are actually having a good day today. Today, we're going to be having an episode that's really something in the forefront that I believe that a lot of people go through in a lot of different ways when it comes to everyday living. And it's the concept of age, it's the concept of getting older, how we view it, how many cultures see it in so many different ways, and what exactly does it look like for people who are experiencing these kind of things that think the same way how we all are going to experience it as we get older. Some more than others, as we know, some people leave a little bit early off this planet, and others manage to have a really long amount of quantity of years. But exactly how does that translate to quality of experiences while you're here on this planet? And that's some of the things that I want to go through for today. So take a bit of a ride with me on it as I try to break this down as best as I can in my thoughts. And then I'll open it up for the panel and we will all see what your particular thoughts on it. So, yeah, let's just kind of get into it. When it comes to the concept of getting age, where we tackle the idea of this whole profound social aspect of how people see aging. Why are people so terrified when it comes to getting older? What is it about aging that makes us become a little closed off and even dare say shudder? Why do we avoid either two things? Why do we avoid mirrors or even stare profusely at them based on how we look at ourselves, how we judge ourselves from how we used to be, how we used to look versus how we look now? We all know that age comes with the bit of being alive. For all things that are created also must perish. All concepts that are created eventually will become overridden. But some people even take drastic measures to try to prevent time. And I want to explore some of that stigma, all the stuff around the growing older concept. And what exactly does that mean when it comes to our quote beauty standards? What about when it comes to career? What about us when it comes to self-worth? I know, I know. Some people might be thinking he's gonna do an aging talk. He's probably gonna start bashing people who are old or start going after people who are young. But that's not what this competition is about. This isn't going to be about aging gracefully, or rather, it's a lecture about that. I just want to be digging into a little bit of a conversation when it's tuned into the idea of aging and kind of getting into that kind of villain in our society. So if you haven't got your favorite drink yet, let's get into it. But before we get started, you know what I always like to do. I like to acknowledge everybody who has already walked into the building. So Ruck, the first one in here, he had to be the only person to just start walking in here, hit the thumbs down, hit my poll saying that he did not actually give me the yes, but instead he did actually hit the thumbs up. He just had to be contentious for the hell of it. John the Baptist came in here. I don't know when he's on my TikTok, TikTok. You're not gonna rush me. I got more time than you do, old man. Don't rush me. And LA came in. What's good, man? So, how do I want to get this started off? I guess I want to start by acknowledging something that a lot of people won't really say out loud. We all fear aging. A lot of people won't say it. But it's true. It's not just the gray hairs. It's not just the wrinkles that we start seeing a little bit over time. But what about the concept of feeling invisible? What about the concept of feeling invisible? Think about it. In our particular culture, especially for those, let me just say it because I get people to watch all over. For people who are in the West, youth is the thing that is prized. The younger looking, the younger you are, the more value you seem to have. While in everyday ads, in movies, we're bombarded with this idea of staying youthful. Staying young is equal to staying relevant. But let me ask you something. When was the last time you saw someone over 60 in a major beauty, say, campaign? How about the lead of a great movie, someone who's over 60? It's almost like society wants older people to just straight up disappear. They want these people to just fade into the background. They want the same thing that they push onto other people to eventually happen to them because they too will one day get older. And it's no wonder when you have people treat people like that, why people fear aging. It feels like this erasing of identity. And this fear, it's big, even when it comes to business. Businesses are a big thing about it. Well, let's look at the skincare agency, or let me just put the anti-aging agency, beauty patches, all that stuff. Well, if you're gonna say TikTok, sir, yes, you're older than me, so the time, the clock, man. Don't rush me. I got a little bit of a window, a little bit. Damn, L.A. Oh, just going in. Some beg to differ. It's truth that wisdom is wasted on the young, but let's be honest. When it comes to age, people who are older get ignored. When you're older, younger people tend not to listen to you. So is it really better? Is it better in business? How many people that you say in our sports agencies are playing well into their 60s? There's a youth bar, even when it comes to sports. There's a youth bar when it comes to business. And speaking of the businesses, especially those big businesses, let's talk about like basically like the skincare age, freaking industries, or industries in law, or industries in freaking retail or whatever. These some of these places are worth billions. You know, when I think of people trying to stay young, I think about the people who are using fillers, they're using Botox, they're using creams that promise that they will turn back the clock. And all these just basically feed into the fear that we all know, we all talked about at some point in time. Here's the kicker though, we all know the truth. We all know that taking these things, taking these serums, these medicine, these creams, they never stop you from actually aging. All they do is mask what little bit is actually can't be stopped by making us feel like we're holding on to you just a little bit longer. Let's be real about it. The moment you stop taking your treatments, Botox, skin creams, whatever, time catches up to you fast. What's good, Con? It does. And the industries all know this. They all know this, and yet people still try to hold on to as much as they can because people are bank, or because rather these companies are banking on our insecurities. And we pay up because deep down, we believe that aging is somehow making us less visible. And it's a nasty, vicious cycle. But I think the thing that's really sad is that this obsession with staying young keeps us trapped, but it also keeps us from appreciating the beauty of getting older. We forget that age comes with, yes, as you're saying, some things, John, or even as you said, Ruck, it comes with wisdom, it comes with experience, it comes with a sense of self. And you can't buy that with a jar or a needle. But nothing ever stops you from trying to make you feel like you're obsolete when you get older. Let's just talk about the workplace, right? We talk about this when it comes to beauty, right? But when it comes to careers, ageism doesn't stop people. It doesn't stop at the looks because it seeps into our personal lives and our professional lives as well. I can't say for all you, especially if you work by yourself. But if you ever work in a group or in a major company where multiple decisions and multiple perspectives need to be thought up on, how many of you have felt like you were being pushed out of a job just because you weren't as, or rather, you weren't the youngest person in the room anymore? I can tell you from speaking to people how many said that they came into a job when they were young eyed, bushy tailed, maybe in they started in their teens and they still stayed at that company. Maybe some people said they started in their early 20s and here they are at the great old age of 50 and 40. And they say that their ideals and their thoughts and their experiences are not taken with a degree of seriousness. Not because they don't have any experience, but it's just, it seems like the youth just seem to ignore them, or people within industries just tend to want to hear out the youth more. And once you hit a certain age, let's just say 50 or even 40 in some industries, you start hearing things like, we're looking for fresh energy. You might not be a culture fit anymore. And what this really means is you're too old for us. It's like once you reach a certain age, people assume that you're lost. You lost your creativity, you lost your experience, you lost your drive, you lost your ambition, or that you even lost your ability to learn new things. And that's crazy. And don't even get me started on women and aging in the workplace. I've seen it when it comes to you ladies as well. It's a double edged sword where they were expected to maintain both their youth, but also all the other things that equate to aging without losing their femininity or their sex appeal. And that affects their career prospects too. It's ridiculous. I've seen it happen in real time. I've heard how people really talk behind closed doors. And when I think about this and how we treat people here in the West, I then start thinking about other cultures, how different cultures see freaking age. Because not every culture is obsessed with youth. In many Eastern countries, for example, aging is seen as a sign of wisdom and respect. The older you get, the more revered you are. Elders are consulted on the importance of family dynamics, family decisions, They're respected in their communities. Compared to the West, I mean, let's be honest, we don't really value older people in that way. We don't. So, what is it about our Western culture that makes us so afraid when it comes to aging? Is it because like we're just tied so much to our worth, our productivity, or is it because somehow we glorify independence to the point where basically needing help is seen as a weakness? Because I think in other places, aging means becoming more connected, more connected to your communities, more connected to your family. You become more connected to the social circles that you've built over time. Here, it feels like isolation is the reward for getting older. The older you get, the more isolated you become. The more older you get, the less relevant you become. But that's my thoughts on it. What are you guys thinking about when it comes to the idea of people getting older and how it affects everyone? Because it's going to affect all of us as we get older. I mean, if you live, or you've lived in a different, if you lived in different cultures, or you have like a mixed family background, I'm wondering, how do people in your family, or how the people that you know in your lives view age? Give me an idea what you're thinking. Whether it's in the chat, or if you're catching us on the replay, drop it in the comment. But I do have to ask another thing, because I'm thinking about it right now. Is the fear of aging the simple fact that we're just fearing mortality? I think lots of people have this fear around age because, let's be honest, as we get grays, as we get wrinkles, at its core, it's a fear of just being mortal. It's a fear about mortality, because aging reminds us that we're not going to be around forever. And to some people, that's a very scary concept. And here's a question: is it possible that embracing age might actually help us come to terms with our actual mortality? Instead of basically trying to say that we're going to fight it, maybe we should actually be celebrating the fact that we've lived long enough to experience life in all of its complexities. And let's just be honest, the longer that you've come to experience life, you can always turn around, take a look, and think of your news, think of the papers, think of people in your friends and family who did not make it to live as long as you have. But for some people who want to go through it, it's like the more we try to deny aging, the more we resist the natural process of life itself. And that resistance is exhausting. What if people learn to just let go? Just a little bit, and stop trying to freeze ourselves in time, and instead embrace growth, embrace the change, the evolution of the years that come with age. I know it sounds a little bit cheesy, but maybe age isn't the enemy. Maybe, just maybe, it's a gift. All right, but that's enough for me. It's enough for me being on my bit of my soapbox. To As I was really thinking about this, I'm gonna open it up for you guys. Grab the link. Link is in the Chizat, and I'm gonna pin that to the top as well. Give me your thoughts. How exactly are you? How do you look at age, especially when we're trying to compare ourselves to the ones who are still ahead of us in the game and those who are coming after us? What do you think about this whole stigma around age? Do you feel like society's valuing youth too much? Because whatever happened to your experience and your personality? What about your whole social life and your career? And for like, for those who are viewing culture and their backgrounds, how do you think the culture views you? Brooke, what's going on, man?
I'll bite. I'm old. I'm 61. Um, I even wrote down a couple questions that I wanted to address. One of the first things you said was, hang on a second, I need to cough. Forgive me. One of the things you said early on was, it reminded me. I can't quote you. I'm paraphrasing. All I can say is it reminded me of when I was young. I was once doing a youth car wash, trying to raise money for our Pop Warner football team. And behind the great people who were bringing their cars through to have us wash them, I was making fun of them behind their backs. I didn't have any respect. It's like I had respect to people's faces. Everybody was sir and ma'am my entire life. But I hit this weird stage when I got into like athleticism right around the early teen years, where for some reason I thought I was bulletproof and anybody over the age of 50 just didn't matter anymore. So, like, I was not disrespectful to their faces. I did have an attitude. I did think I was being funny when I was punking them behind their backs. And oh, damn it, I wrote something. Okay, the next thing I wrote down was the movies and the audiences. You mentioned how of late, the last decade or two, your stars are getting younger. I mean, we still have people like Harrison Ford that's going to show up in a movie now and then, and he's older, and we're going to have some of these people that are older. But I think my answer to that is who is willing to spend the money to actually go out and see a film anymore? It's the younger audience. You're not going to see anybody over the age of 35 going to the movie theater unless it's a first date, right? I mean, they're going to be Netflix or it's going to be a movie they love. So I think that greatly influences how Hollywood goes about marketing their films by who they put in them. Okay,
I don't know. I do see people in their 30s and even going into their 40s do like some people still go as group of friends because it's the only way they really still find the things that's sociable about. Like for instance, like when we have people who have their favorite movies or genre, like the Marvel series or DC, whatever, like they go in a group of friends, whatever. Some people have community groups online because they just love to be a part of those things. So I do see older people go to the movies.
I appreciate that. I respect. I'm not going to argue with that. The last couple times I've been to the movies, it have been a scenario like that. Hey, we haven't been together in a couple weeks. Let's get together, go to dinner, and catch a movie,
Yeah,
or catch a movie and go out for drinks just to catch up.
yeah.
Okay, all right. I stand corrected. You're right. I did have another thing written down um, about my particular industry. I When I did come into my industry, I was older than my type. My voice was deeper, I was bigger, I was physically more mature, I was a little bit older than the roles, than my face fit. I didn't look over 30 until I was 40. You know what I mean? So when I tried to come into my industry, they're like, well, sooner or later, you're going to grow into your voice, or you're going to grow into your body, or your face is going to catch up with the rest of you. Because I had that, that apple pie pinch my cheeks, kind of face. But now that I've gotten older and I've gone gray, I get a hell of a lot more work because people my age in my industry have usually given up by now because they've missed their window. And I'm getting lucky right now because I'm realizing I'm actually in my window. Now that I'm old and decrepit, I'm in my window. So, I mean, it's a double-edged sword, that whole ageist thing. Yeah, I understand. I get it. I agree with you. We're all worried about that. Nobody wants to be phased out, right? None of us want to be phased out. But I found in my particular industry, I've been phased in and then phased out and then phased back in. And I'm just waiting to get phased back out again. That's the fact of the matter. All I can rely on is my voice and the ability to read well. That's about all I have going for me in terms of stability, you know.
I think that's what a lot of people as they get older are just looking to hold on to stability. Let's just be honest. As we all get older, we may have had really large social groups, but as time goes on, people get married, they have kids, they move. You know, things happen. But over time, the thing that I see is, let's just say you're a really outgoing person. Over time, as you get older, you become more the person who's inside. You or rather you grow into a part of personal growth where you now crave peace, I guess you can say. But that also comes with its own source of punishment. You know, in some ways, people can go back and say, I remember being out all the time to say, would you still like to have that? They said, no, I don't want to go out and be in the clubs or anything like that again. But I do miss having a social circle. But it doesn't mean they can also still do the same things that they used to do. I'm sorry, there are not people who are sitting there. Some, but not a lot of people were sitting out there saying, well, I used to run a lot in my 20s and now I'm going to start picking that up in my 60s. You, everybody has the same, even for me in my 40s, and I was even saying this in my 30s. There are things that I want my body to do that it just won't do the same way anymore.
Oh,
And
talk,
yeah,
talk to me. Yes.
mentally, I'm still that person, but my body's not. And that's a real thing to have to deal with. Disto, what's going on? What's going on, Dan?
Was just coming in and hearing this whole thing. Another 40-some-year-old guy here. you know, the other day I was we went off to play Mehenga. Amateur football. Well, not football here in Latin America. You guys get me. Anyhow, and what I used to do in my 20s, now my 40s, is like my knees are just going around and saying "f you." We're not gonna work anymore. Uh, what you were able to do at your 20s, now at your 40s, forget about it. You're not gonna do it anymore. Oh yeah, I can feel you. you know, it's it's interesting because my mom is 78. My father died at 90 of Parkinson, 90, 92, 93. Um, an aunt that was very close to me just recently died 2 years ago at age 81. You know, so once you get to this age, you go more to funerals than to parties, man.
Sad but true. True. Um, on top of that, like I remember being very young, barely in my teens, and then how much I would hear like an uncle say he was going out, he met someone new or something like that. And then having that same uncle I'm speaking to so many years later, say I'm in my 30s, and he talks about all the people that he knows that are passing away. It's a just
I'm
different
so
kind of energy.
I'm so glad you mentioned that. I have come to the realization, looking back over my Facebook stuff, that I am losing on the average a person a month, that either from high school or elementary school or college or my college football days, guys I played against or with, my rugby days, my theater days. I'm literally losing a person a month, and it's been that way since COVID.
Pretty much. I can utterly and completely relate to that. I'm pretty much losing a person I know about a month. You know? The other day I was thinking, oh man, I gotta call this dude up, and I'm like, wait a second, can't call this dude up because he's dead.
I mean, it's but like I said, we have this thing where everybody of all kind of ages, there are like I think of like the older women who try to go to the young people's club. Like, lady, ma'am, what are you doing here? You're probably good target practice, but you're not the same thing as a 20-something-year-old. You're in your 40s, haven't been. You're in your 50s. You can't be in the 20-something-year-olds clubs. You're not doing the same thing. You're not on the same level of competition.
Well, no, there's an interesting point right there. I worked in clubs for years. I even managed for a bit, and there was always like one mom or auntie that would come in and be fun and be cool. And then about once every six to maybe every 3 to 6 months, there would be one that came in that, yeah, you perfectly depicted her right there. It's like, what are you doing here? You do not belong here. Sometimes you have the auntie that sits at a little cocktail table and has rounds with the girls and they all celebrate. And then you got that one that's out there on the dance floor with one arm falling off of her dress and bra straps sticking out and stuff, falling out of her high heels while she's trying to twerk or some shit. It's like, what do you think you're doing, lady?
Well, what's interesting in my case, I'm in the heavy metal scene. I've been in heavy metal since 8 years old, and when I got back here in Costa Rica, heavy metal people were being persecuted, arrested, yada yada yada. We went through that, but late '90s, early the century, a bar opened up called Sands, right? So we would always go there, and it was fun, whole bunch of stuff. And the bar changed locations and then closed. A few days ago, a friend of mine says, "Hey, let's go to this new bar, heavy metal bar." I'm like, "All right, let's go check it out. Let's go see what's up." I kid you not, the whole scene was 20s. It was me, two of my friends who are me 43, the other guy 44, the other guy 45. And we're sitting on this table just wondering to ourselves, what the hell just happened? Completely surrounded by 20-year-olds. And suddenly this kid comes around and starts throwing attitude our way. And I'm like, dude, we're the old school. We're the ones who began this type of thing. What the hell are you thinking? You know? Type of thing. I don't know. Just part of life, I guess.
I don't know. It's weird how people move. Like I said, I was still thinking about it even in terms of employment. There are people who are just as smart, just as capable. This happens even with people who are their jobs are not physically intensive, yet they will sit in a conference in a boardroom meeting, and all of a sudden, like they're still smart, they're still sharp, but they don't look the same way as the other people who are also sitting there. And I've seen this happen where they kind of get drowned out in their team. Maybe they're the oldest person in their team, and unless they're the person who is quote leading that team, they seem to get drowned out by people around them, or it looks weird, even to the point where I had to catch myself looking at it. People find it weird that your boss is many years younger than you are. within that department. You
I've
know,
seen I've seen that in teaching circles a lot too, Resla. You're not wrong. You'll get a dynamic personality that just wants to be the big dog on the block, and they don't have any respect. They don't have any respect for what that person that just can't shout as loud and just doesn't want to fight as hard for it anymore. It's like I fought my years. Now it's your turn to fight. I have my wisdom, but if you don't value that, that's fine. I offer it, but I can't. I'm too old to try to make you swallow my bullshit. You know?
well, I mean, and it's funny part because I've been in a dynamic where I have been the oldest person in the team. Um, I was in my 30s, handling everybody who's in their 20s. I've been in a team where my boss was younger than I was, but looked older than me. So that was interesting. Um,
Well,
it's a weird dynamic to see to see people in. And then there's, like I said, there's the whole thing that the people are still sharp. And by the way, you just mentioned at taking your experience, right? I'll say this for people who are older, because I think this is a problem that they feel like they're being thrown into. They're being shoved into these positions where, oh, you're an old person now. It's your time to transition. You need to start mentoring. Not everybody is meant for the mentorship role.
well,
Just because
Wow,
you're
that's
older now,
interesting.
yeah, just because you're older now doesn't mean you need to mentor.
You know
You
what's
still
funny?
can live
That
your life.
that's a hell of an interesting point. I started mentoring before I hit 30. And then I got to a point at about 50 where I would toss you a bone, and if you didn't pick it up, all right, fine. I'm not going to toss you another one unless I see another reason to, right? But if you did pick it up, then I might step into a mentorship role. I find that I'm better at teaching what I do for a living than I am at doing what I do for a living. So there is part of me, my heart is all about mentor. But for me, I was such a thirsty student that if I don't see hunger, if I don't see wanna, if I don't see I want to learn this, I am not going to put too much energy out there. My wife says I do not suffer fools gladly. And to me, that's a little bit harsh, for the topic. But for me, it's as a mentor, if you want it and I have it to offer, I will share it. But I don't feel it's my job to say, "Hey, I have something you can use," unless I see something in you that says this person wants this, right? Does that make sense?
It does, but I've seen in corporate America that when people are fault, like, even if they're really experienced and they want to go into a position of management, everybody just kind of looks at them like, you should already be here already, or why do you think you should be here now? Is it somehow there are years? Like I said, even if it's not a physically intensive role, it's about your mindset, it's about your experience, about what your track record is. This idea that you would get forced essentially into a mentorship role, or there are people who are older and they feel like the only way they can stay relevant is to push themselves into a mentorship role, is it's a bit insulting.
well, in
It's
my
one
case,
it's one thing if you wish to do it, but in order for you to feel like you're relevant, you push yourself into that, because now that's the only role that people really are trying to hold that only door open for you. It's insulting.
in my
Yeah,
case,
to me, that's desperation. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to
yeah,
interrupt. Go ahead. My
that's
bad.
okay. No, in my case, I mentioned on another thing. I worked 15 years as customer service for several things. About 2 years ago, a friend of mine who's still on that, he asked me to help him with an next project of customer service that was happening, etc. So I wasn't doing much. I said, all right, I'll help you out. The manager was a 25-year-old kid, you know, and the whole essence of the job was picking up the phones, giving out the information, clearing out the problems, yada yada yada. Usual, the usual customer service type of thing. And this kid, 25 years old, my friend told me, careful with the attitude of this guy. He thinks he's the top of the top, and he doesn't take well to criticism. So he asked me, "Look, man, I just need help shaping him into form, and there's no better son of a bitch than you." And I said, "All right, I'll do my way." When I came in, this kid, he he did not have the capacity of managing people. He just he was too self-centered into himself. I'm the manager. We do as we say, and etc. So I taught him. So I did a simple approach: do as I do, do as I say, don't do as I do, type of thing. You know, I put him on shape. We had a couple of face off, etc. But nothing that couldn't be handled. And on my other side of the work aisle, working on activism, on political activism, etc., one thing I've noticed is that the young ones that come into political activism, be it directly on the lobby or political analysis in Congress or any other area of either ONGs or government, and they see somebody like me who's been on this for 25 years, they shut up and they bow down because they know that if they don't and they give us attitude, the world is gonna eat them, and it's gonna eat them alive. I've had people cry out of my offices because the pressure is too much, and they ask me, "How the hell do you manage this for 25 years?" The pressure of death threats and the pressure of political things and yada yada yada, and I just tell them, you don't need to handle it. You just need to live it and enjoy it. That's the whole point of it, of this whole thing. You know. So in my case, I think that to make the point is, you know, as I've grown older and I'm growing older, yeah, like the body here says, zero tolerance for fools and foolishness. You just become great old sob, and y- young ones, you tell them shape up, nut up, or get eaten.
Well, that's also another stigma, though, right? The ideal that as we get older, we just become old and cranky. That's not true. And so, even in the corporate world, I see plenty of delightful people who are older, and I love working with them.
I was
Like we don't all have
crankier
to be
when I was
bastards just
younger than
because
I
we're
am
getting
now.
older. I mean, because trust me, I am a licensed asshole, whether I was younger or not. In fact, actually, I've been only learned to become more tolerant of people, not nicer, but more tolerant. I'm more patient than I ever was now.
I was crankier 20 years ago than I am now.
Same here.
Now I
Same.
just got now I just realized, look, I can't fix it all. All I can do is fix how I handle it, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm not me myself. I'm not cranky. I'm strict.
Well, yeah,
I
same thing I tell
realize it.
people. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm not rude. I'm direct. But
I'm
I'm an
direct.
I'm
yeah,
an old Marine, an old athlete, an old coach. Yeah, I have a set of rules. They're somewhat bendable. I understand when you say you're strict. I totally get that. But yeah, there is always a little bit of flexibility and understanding until you realize that that person just is not getting where they're supposed to step up and what they're supposed to learn. And that's when I'm like, okay, I've done all I can. I've done all I can. I'm going to pass you on to HR.
I would say that, yeah, my style is understanding two things. People, young ones, always come with their beliefs, with their hopes, etc. And it's my responsibility to show them that belief and hope ain't enough. You have to put the effort. You have to do the actions in order to achieve whatever you want to achieve. But you also have to learn that in my areas of work, you can't approach everything with a with this optimism. Neither everything you have to arrive on a pessimism. All you have to do is learn to take the hits and learn to then adapt from those hits. But like you said, you give or you open the terrain, but if that person is not ready, there's not much we can do, you know.
I tend to tell younger people, you need to find your purpose outside the place that you're working. Please do not think that you're here. Your entire goal is to come here and think that you are the golden child and you will reshape the industry. Find your passions outside. Find your hobbies
Thank you.
outside. Do not make your job your hobby, please.
Thank you and bless you for giving them those tools. I mean, those really are tools right there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm gonna come and I'm gonna shape this place. Like you say they are bright eyed and bushy tailed and they're so hopeful and they think they can shape the. No, stop. Like I tell plenty of people, I said, how long has this company been in business? And some of them, like some places that I worked, like no, oh, so it's been here longer than you've been born, right? Who are you to think that you can walk in here and start shaping the way how our company has been well before you were established during bedtime?
That
How about you
introduces a
find,
question.
find something for yourself to do outside of here, and how about you just learn the ropes?
That introduces a question to me. Do you think it is idealism towards some kind of financial goal or some idea of success, or more a I'm younger, faster, better, smarter kind of attitude? I'm curious. You deal with it more than I do.
So it's different. It's different, way different in ages. It took me a while to realize that looking at older people than younger people. Um, Older people have either been in the box where they have enough experience that they're they know where they want to go, or they've totally given up on where they want to go, and maybe they're just trying to figure it out. So either they know they have a purpose in something that they want to do, whether it's in the company or outside the company, they already know. Or like I said, some of them are just coasting. They're doing enough not to get fired. You know, um,
Okay.
and younger people, they're the opposite. Either they really don't give a shit, and the problem is that they really don't even do the bare minimum not to be a burden, or they are trying to discover purpose, and therefore they put their energies in the wrong area.
Okay. In my industry, it's either I'm better than you, I can't learn anything from you, or I'm here to study. There's rarely anything in between, you
Well,
know?
and sometimes that's true. That's just with people, though. Some people are just not good. Some people are just not good mentors, or some people just there's some people who are just the people who are the mentees that just they cannot learn from a certain development style. Like for instance, that for some people they're good at taking orders from the military because that's just how they were strictly raised. And there's some people that they're used to a softer hand for them to understand things. They put forth analogies, they put forth parables that people pick up on. Some people it's not that cut and dry. Everybody's different.
I've forgotten how much I it's not I've forgotten. I guess I put it way behind my head how much I hated the corporate world. That's why I went into political activism, because it's a different ball field right there. Um, Especially when you're dealing with legislative Congress, elected Congress, as well as the more local, either mayors or governors or whatever. When you start working on that type of field of area, it's a completely different world, because A, you're alone. B, if you have a team, you have to learn to move the pieces around in order for example, just to give you an idea, if we're pushing for a legislative um, a legislative law that needs to be passed, right? How do we get the numbers to get that legislative to move through? So you learn how to lobby. You learn how to maneuver between what is and what must be done versus not falling into the bad habits of big money lobbyists, and beating them. So what's interesting is in my case when I've passed so far, I passed one of my major laws I passed was the legalization of cannabis, but that was just a one out of the seven in my 20 years I have been able to pass through Congress to change things here in my country. And on that one, I kid you not, I had big money lobbying against me. I'm talking billions of dollars against me. And like I told one kid before, it doesn't matter if they waste 1 billion, 10 billion, 100 billion. If you know how to bypass that quantity of money and you're able to push forward the project and get it through the legislative mean, you just beaten $1 billion. You just beaten $100 billion. So in my circumstance, I guess that after I left the corporate world, what I wanted to do, and I've been modestly able to achieve it in many ways, was get myself into the points where I can change reality. And so far, it has. I've had my successes as well as I've hit my head hard on the pavement. You know.
Yeah, I'm going to give you a compliment. You sound very, very much like a neighbor of mine in spirit. He's a man that comes from Ethiopia. His wife is Nigerian. Um, I'm not dog. I don't care if I dox myself. I'm not afraid. I live in Las Vegas. There is a little bit of everybody here, and the neighborhood I live in, due to just how it's grown ever since the buildings were built, it's a townhouse environment. But the neighborhood is referred to as Little Ethiopia, and they actually got it passed through the city council to tag this area as Little Ethiopia, and we have Little Ethiopian celebrations with food trucks, and everybody comes out and basically makes it a block party. So, I mean, that part of it is really, really cool. And your spirit reminds me of his because he works so hard for his community to try to make it better. I just wanted to give you a shout out and say you remind me of a guy I know that I really admire. You do a lot to make your community better. Good for you, sir.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. It's rare the thank yous you get in this type of line of business. Most of the time, you get criticism, and most of the time, you get attacks or death threats. So the occasional thank you comes very, very, very nice in this line of business, if we could call it a business, because it ain't a business.
Well, I might not agree with your political affiliations, but the fact that you fight for what you believe in and you try to make a better life for what you believe in, I'm always going to support that.
Yeah, I'm slowly getting back into maybe corporate after the legalization of cannabis here. I've been building my business for cannabis slowly, so probably I'll get back into corporate in that sense. But the 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 raw activism is going to be there for the rest of my life. You know.
Okay, now here's a question. We're talking about ageism and stuff like that. Do you think your age might be a hindrance when you come into the cannabis industry, or do you think that your experience and your mileage are going to pay off?
That's a good question. I don't know. I honestly do not know because
Because isn't
um,
isn't the cannabis industry a whole bunch of young, hip, new money, or is there some older money in there too? I don't know.
um, maybe focused in the United States, but outside in Latin America is fairly new. So you don't have that form of representation. You got some new kids on the block. I'm gonna give you an example. There's a business that was established after my whole work of legalization, etc. And I go into that business. I look at what they have, and one of the bosses recognizes me because he saw me in TV and etc. And he says, "You're the guy who made this business possible." And he told me, "Why do you come work with me?" And I tell him, "I appreciate it, I really do, but I don't work for anybody. I work for myself and for the people, but not for someone in specific. And I'm gonna build my own business. I'm gonna do my own stuff." And he told me, "Listen, if you ever need the assistance, etc., I don't have anything against going into business with you." And I was happy for that. I'm like, "All right, I'll hook you up. I'll call you if I ever needed any form of help." You know, so far I haven't needed it, but eventually, if that happens, I know it's there and it's cool. So, frankly, if I face any problems on that sense, I guess I'll just do it like always. You know, I don't give a f about it and just move forward. You know, but there's a big enemy right there: the narcs, the illegal, the clandestine market. They want monopoly and they want it bad. So they see anybody building a legal business of cannabis, they'll threat, they'll try to kill you.
Damn, damn, and that's regardless of age, right?
That's regardless of age.
Right. I mean, they don't care how old you are. You go against them, you dead. I gotta forgive me for shifting again, but I have this list of questions. Resla, when you do that, you start this and like you say something, and I start writing down questions that I want to go back to. So
Okay.
here I am. Um, one of the things you mentioned, are there benefits of getting old? Are there good parts of getting old? And one of the things I wanted to touch on is, yeah, in the sense that once you come to the age that you realize that no one's listening to your voice anymore, your voice doesn't really matter. You're not going to be able to change the worlds the way you thought maybe you could because you realize the system takes too long. The system takes too long. If I introduce something today, it's going to take 12 years before it's voted on. And how broke and dead am I by then, right? This system takes too damn long to effectively create change unless you start young enough. So, like, are there good parts to getting old? Actually, yeah, I feel like the pressure is off. I tried my hardest for y'all. I voted my best. I did everything I could for us. And yeah, now I'm 61 years old. I can't be as effective as I used to could be. And that actually takes a little bit of pressure off of me. So to me, that's kind of one of the benefits. And I realize I'm not going to live to see the worst of it. I'm sorry to say that, but I'm not. I'm not going to live to see the shit show this is going to be in 25, 30 years. Your children might. And I worry for them. And I try to vote right for them now while I'm still here. But I'm not voting for me anymore. Now I'm voting for your kids. Does that make sense? And so I
It
kind of
does.
I have a little bit of strength and feeling like that maybe I'm making the right choice for the future, but I also have a little bit of strength in knowing that I fought my fight. Now I just get to sit back and watch it all unfold before me in my twilight.
Uh, so there's two sides of that that I see, and rather that I hear. I hear more than see, um, because the only thing you can really do is really vote. But I do hear a lot of that different sides when it comes to a lot of older people. Whether it's been people online, whether it's been people through their articles, whether it's been people who have actually just seen them in conversation, just hearing the conversation. And what I normally do not get, but I wholeheartedly understand, is the point that you just made. When you're making decisions, you are very much well aware that you're not going to be there to see it, but that you can make the most changes that you know would be beneficial for them. Because the ideal is for you to think about what's going to be taking place for them based on what they cannot see currently, because they're growing up into it. They're not voting right now or whatever. And then I see the other side of it, right? That it's what I call the endless now. And what I mean by the endless now is that it's the revisionist history. You know, it's the this is the way how I came up through the world. And I think that that time was the best time in the world. And therefore, I don't want to see the world change this direction because I think A, B, and C is bad. So I'm going to make sure that I do whatever I can so that the world can stay the way how I remember it, robbing
Right.
technically the people who are coming afterwards.
Wow, that's a very interesting angle. Because that addresses values, right? Does it's like whose values do you because values might change. The things I might vote for now, you might be stuck with in 8 to 12 years, and things might have changed so much that you no longer value that value, right?
Well, I look at it in terms of how we all got here to the way it is now. The values that people have now are not the values that say their parents had or their parents had. It's like when we're growing up. It's like what you're wearing right now. People will say, "I would." My mom would have never allowed me to get away with what you're wearing now. And the same thing, how their grandparents or their parents would have said the same thing about what they were doing. Things change all the time. Time always changes, whether we like it or not. But the idea that that even through the ideal of values that we think we can stop time, when I just say, some of the values that some people have now, way back whenever the time you were thinking when your parents was looking at it, they would have disagreed with the values that you keep now. And now you're an older person yourself. And now you want to
Oh
stop
hell yeah.
younger people from developing values because you think that they don't have values when your parents would have thought that you don't have values. We go through the cycle. And
You
that's
know,
just a
Right,
matter of being
right.
old. That's just a matter
I,
of being old and growing through the motions. I say it the same way as this though. It's when you're young, you don't listen to your parents and you definitely think that your grandparents are out of touch. When you are older, you realize that your grandkids are looking at you the same way as if you looked at your grandparents. They don't want to listen to you because they think that you're out of touch.
Right, but when we're older, we realize our grandparents were right about so much. You know?
Which is why they
They
say
really
that,
were.
that wisdom is wasted on the youth. Sorry, yeah,
wasn't
yeah. No,
Oscar Wilde
wisdom is wasted on the old. Like the youth don't really understand until they get to that point.
wasn't Oscar Wilde who said once, "Youth is a sickness that only is cured by time."
Absolutely. It's always been that way.
It's always been that way. You know,
Always been that way.
listening to
You
you and to what the other friend said, um, I think one of the greatest things that age and growing old gives you is not only that what we call wisdom, or you know, hindsight always is 2020. Also humility, but there's also something that I've enjoyed as I've grown older is that grade of cynicism of understanding, you know, when I die, I want my body cremated, but I want a plaque with the "Don't panic, so long, and thanks for all the fish." That's everything I want to live in this world is that. Don't panic, and so long, and thanks for all the fish.
That was wait, you might have said it. I was writing. That was Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, right?
Exactly. Douglas Adams.
Okay,
you know, and,
that's what I
and
thought.
and this whole conversation just reminded me of that quote that it said. It I'm gonna read it. I pulled it up because I remembered it. It said, "This planet has already had a problem, which was this: most of the people living on it were unhappy for pretty much of the time. Many solutions were suggested for this problem, but most of this were largely concerned with the movement of small green pieces of paper, which was odd, because on the whole, it wasn't the small green pieces of paper that were unhappy."
I love the way they describe the metaphor for money and the financial system on the planet in that book. I mean, that's an amazing book. If you've never read it, I urge you all to read it. It
It's one
takes
of
a
my
little bit of
favorites.
imagination, but it's a great book. One of the things that you both triggered in me was the bad side of old age, or one of the things, and it goes back directly to what I was saying earlier. A lot of us, when I said I was trying to vote for your children's future, and then Resla followed up making the point that he made about how quickly things change, it made me realize that one of the bad parts of getting old is the fallacy of trying to predict the future. The fallacy of thinking you know enough to help somebody 20 years down the road when all the rules have changed. You just brought that to my eyesight. Thank you.
But
Yeah,
that's why I was
that's my
saying that
point.
the "Don't
But
panic,
go ahead.
so long, and thanks for all the fish," because that's the point. I do the things to fix the things that are right now what I see is wrong. I give 10 bleeding hecks what's going to happen after I die because I'm going to be dead. So don't panic. So long, and thanks for all the fish.
So that's why I always tend to say, instead of believing that we can go through, and that's why I named it the endless now. How about just being grateful for the time that you lived in that you thought was the best? Because everybody thinks that the time they grew in was the best. How about
Right,
just being
Resla?
grateful?
Right?
Because
When I was a
if you
kid,
can look and be at your age now, or when you're older, and just say that the world is terrible now, then be happy that you lived in a time where you thought things were great. You got that experience, and now you can turn around and say, if you want to, that you pity the way that the world has turned into. Cool. That means you had the last bastion of sunshine. Have some great gratitude when it comes to that. And then have sympathy for those who are not going to experience it. But I guarantee you, most likely you're talking to these people, they're not gonna share your same sentiment, because why? That time is not theirs. It's yours. They found joy in other things, in what they're living, to what their present is, not your past.
when I was 14, 15, 16, 17, all my high school years, we lived in a community in Southern California where we were literally 12.3 miles from the beach. And back in those days, four of us teenage kids could strap our Maury boogie boards to the back of our 10 speeds with a bungee cord. We could put our swim fins and our goggles over our handlebars, and we could ride out a 2-lane highway, 12.3 miles each way, and boogie board at the beach 3 days a week during summer before two-a-day football practice started, right? You can't do that. You can't allow your children to do that. So when you say, yeah, we cherish the memories of our time was the best time, yeah, yeah, we do. I look at what I could do that kids can't do now. I could disappear on my bicycle at 8 o'clock in the morning any day of the week in the summertime, and nobody gave a damn as long as by the time like within 5 minutes of time the street light came on, my ass was home because that was like get your ass home, right? We could do things then we can't do now.
Yeah, but you know
What
what also is different from that time? The abundance of information and how we are now very much aware of how many people go missing and how often they go missing and how many PDFs are out there now.
Well, back then we didn't go missing as often. That's about the only thing I can say. You
But
know,
now,
I
but
mean, it's
now this
got a
is where
lot
you're,
worse. It's got a lot
you're
worse, but
yeah.
right.
But
my, my
and also, we didn't have technology that could also help you stay at home.
what's interesting on this, and I'm going to say it this way: my old man, my father, he taught me something once. He told me, well, in Spanish, but I'll translate it. He told me that the past is the cement of today, and today becomes the cement of what's going to happen tomorrow. The influences of all things that have happened are today being experienced, and so on. So, to me, in this perspective, the fallacy of the golden age tells us, dude, you know, the past was better. Not necessarily. And the fallacy of what the friend was saying, fallacy of the predictive future. The future might be worse or will be worse. You don't know that. So neither the past nor the future are ours to command. It's only what we can do right now. Crossing our fingers that our actions and our decisions and etc. leave live it a little bit better for whatever comes next. But at the end, those who will be on the future looking back to us, who are we are the past. Hindsight is 2020. So if they realize, damn, they fucked it up big time. Hey, don't panic. So long and thanks for all the fish. That's all I'm gonna leave for the future. I'm
I'm
coming
on
to that
record.
point.
I'm on record saying that I would not. I'm not one of the people that turn around and say, "Oh, if I could go into the past." That's not important to me. Like it, because you don't even know what the outcome would be if you went back there. I always say I am grateful for the time that I'm in now. I don't want. I'll be honest with you. I grew up in the time of the age of the internet, before the internet, and during the time of the internet being constructed. I am very grateful for the time that I'm in now, for the social and science medical that medicine that we have today. I don't want to think about a time where where things were more difficult because we didn't have access to the thing. I don't want to go back into a time where I could be honest with you and say I didn't have a cell phone. Like I don't want to experience that. But I know there are plenty of people that they grew up in those times and they say we had a great time. And I'm saying I'm happy that you're happy that you have that experience. But I love this moment now. I love my era now.
I'm gonna make a quick joke just because I need to make myself laugh and nobody else. I've never known anybody with jock itch or athlete's foot that wanted to go back to the medieval days, right?
It's a way of
Yeah.
putting it.
uh, yeah, no one who had gonorrhea wanted to go back to the past either. I had to throw it there. It had to be thrown there. You're right.
I was trying to stay a little more PG than that, but you're
Oh
good for
man,
me, bro.
come on,
Good
we're
for, you're good.
47-year-old dudes here.
We know what we're talking. We know what we're talking about. We
Yeah,
agree. We're
yeah,
right.
exactly. No,
Yeah, I
no,
mean, that's just the way how I look at it. Like I am very grateful for the time we have now and what I get to experience, but I don't like I really don't tell younger people like you guys got it bad because the truth matters that they see it differently. The same way how I saw it differently from my grandparents and my parents who were just above.
I guess on my own personal way, my old pops had a lot of influence on me. He was extremely intellectual. So to me, I think I define it this way: always look forward, keep your peripheral eye on the past, acknowledge the past, but always look forward, because eventually you will be that peripheral observation of those who come afterwards. So, like I said, hindsight is 2020, sure, but there's truth in that statement, cliche statement that says those who forget about the past are condemned to repeat it. So,
Mm,
you keep a grade. You don't need you don't need to always be on the past, but keep that peripheral eye right there, because the past undoubtedly feeds into what's the present, and eventually we become that past, that so on. So that's how I've learned it, and that's how I've lived it. You know.
yeah, no, for me it's different. You cannot repeat something you know nothing about. If you
Well,
don't know about the past, you can't repeat it. You have no knowledge of it. You're only experiencing something for the first
I,
time.
there's a saying in Spanish. I'm gonna say it in
I mean,
Wait a
Spanish.
minute, wait a minute. Then well, hang on a second,
what
Resla.
no, 'cause
You're
let
missing the
me tell you
quote.
why.
If we don't heed the past, and that, but
But here's
just
the
the
point I'm gonna get, Russ.
insinuation of heeding, it would insinuate that you understand or you are aware of, right?
Most people don't do that though. Here's what they have. They either have the revisionist history or they get so fixated on the past because what they say about past, no present equals no future. Too many people get stuck in the past and they can't even live in the present. And the thing about being in the present is that means you're in the moment. A lot of people are too focused on the past that they're never in the moment,
You know what?
not
And the
creating a
moment
future.
and the point that I jump to when you say that is, if you are still living in the past, you're not even aware of the moment,
That's the
right?
point.
Right? You, yeah,
That's the
you're not
point.
even aware of the moment. How can you possibly address the moment with its own truth if you're addressing it with your past history, right?
But those who are not fixated in the past are always in the moment and can create a future.
It's There's a saying in Spanish. I'm gonna say it in Spanish and then translate it real quickly. Como la vaca al matadero, se caga al principio, se caga al final. In very short and concise way, just like the cow to the butcher. It either shits at the start or it shits at the end. That saying, what it's trying to say is as follows: you have to always look forward, knowing and acknowledging the moment, the present, but understanding that you have a grade of connection towards the past, and that past either fuels what's happening today, or it can give you a better route to where to go. So in my case, yes, I live in the moment, but I I never um, I never do not keep in mind the past, because that's necessary to enjoy the moment, especially when shit hits the fan. Why did it hit the fan? Where is that shit coming from? Type of thing. And sometimes the shit is coming from way back in the past. Somebody threw it way back in the past and it's hitting us right now.
Well, I think that's very important to even make that distinction. Then, um, whose past is it? Are you going back into your past, or are you going back into a past that was way before you? There's a distinction to be had there. To go back into your own past relevant experience as to how you can move in the present, I'm fine with that. But there are people who get hung up on someone else's past, and therefore they can't move forward. That's a problem.
Oh yeah, revisionism is a crutch of the ignorant. There's no doubt in that. But yeah, I mean, obviously, make the distinction: immediate past, or not so immediate past. So it context is what gives us. It depends on what we are living through, or what type of thing. If If it's some personal or family wise, yeah, immediate past. If it's something more that involves more a societal or type of thing, then you have to. It's a more muckier type of approach in that sense. You have to know how to handle it in that sense. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, we can agree on that base. Where the distinction of acknowledging the past is because of the present and knowing when to use it and when it's not needed. You know, I think the major statement on that is I do disagree with the point of how can you repeat something that you didn't know? Exactly, because you did not know, you repeat it. But if you're informed, you have a better capability of wading through. So the appeal to ignorance isn't enough to say just because you did not know it doesn't mean it did not happen or uh, it did not create the conditions for this to happen. So an appeal to ignorance can also be dangerous. An appeal to ignorance of the past can also lead like the cow. You either shit at the start or you shit at the end. It,
Okay, I feel guilty now because I feel like I asked a question that led us down this path and got us so far away from our original topic.
yeah, yeah,
We're still trying to talk about ageism and what it's like as we get older versus how we're viewed by the younger and stuff like that. Is that correct? Okay, cool. I'm not
Well,
trying
no,
to
well,
cut
no,
you
not
off
just
in
how
any
we.
way, D. I'm not
Yeah,
trying to cut you off. I just think that you
no
and I can
worries.
get carried away on this forever, and Resla would just turn it off. You know.
Yeah,
not just how we are viewed by the younger, but just how society views people who are older in general. And just like I said, that difference that I'm seeing between Western cultures versus other cultures, because there's this whole dynamic of always trying to be forever young, while there's still so many other cultures that embrace age because it's something you can't run away from. To the point where we can see within the West, like how people are treated for getting old. Let's like I said, how many people are in sports or they're seeing in movies or whatever. Like there's this point where I was talking to somebody who he's an actor as well. Say if you get a little bit of gray on your balls, you're done. If you lose all your hair, you're done. Like you can't really get anything, um, because of the appearance of youth. Unless you've already been established for some time, the idea of you having him, like, let's just be honest. How many really known, I'll just say male actors, how many really known male actors who are not like prominent, who haven't really been in great stuff, who you can really say are in their 60s in a star role?
A leading role? No. No.
Leading role.
A leading role? No, not unless they've been in there for a decade or two and they've already shown that I am gonna make all of my investors money. Okay? So
Doesn't
it
mean
ain't
that they're
gonna
not
happen.
great talented
And and
actors. They
and
just won't be
who is
looked at.
who is gonna make the investors money now? Whoever is gonna bring people to the theater. And who's gonna bring people to the theater now? Young, pretty people that they feel that the audience feels like they can relate with, or a story they feel they can relate to with actors they already appreciate.
You
That's
but you
what's gonna
say
bring
that,
them
right?
in-house.
But you say that rough, right? But you know who still draw people in? Say Denzel Washington,
Oh, well,
Morgan
no,
Freeman.
that's yeah,
Like
we're
that's
talking
still bring
A-listers
people
there.
in.
We're talking A-listers there. That's a different
Yeah, but
argument. That's a different conversation.
there are still good older actors who won't even be put in because of the perception of age.
Oh, I
Well,
agree. I
even
agree.
even when they try to put in people who are quote father figures in those movies, they have to already be well established. Because if not, the idea of someone who's a father figure is someone who's probably in his 30s and 40s.
Oh, I mean, it's harder for minority actors than it is for Caucasian actors, in the sense that for how many decades did we only see 5 black actors work? You had Sidney Poitier, you had Sammy Davis Jr., you had Ozzie Davis, and you had maybe 3 other guys. that worked until the 70s and the 80s. And then we got James Earl Jones, and then we got Denzel and stuff. But it's like generationally, there were gatekeepers. There were gatekeepers that said, you're only going to get three. You're only going to get five this decade. You're only going to get seven next decade. And it's not just racial, it is ageist too. But when you add race to age, that's when you're really crippled as an actor in the industry. It's like, yeah, well, you know what? You're only allowed to audition for these five roles that come up for every year, and you might get seriously considered for one of them, and we're going to have to send you to Broadway so you can pay your rent for the next 2 years. I mean,
You know,
I've been watching this shit going for decades, and it
I was
is
thinking about what you were
ageist
saying.
as well as racist.
Well, I was thinking about what you were saying in like in terms of actors. Though I was thinking about older actors. I was thinking about one other person who was in the list who didn't get put into a who hasn't been put in a role for quite a long time because he hasn't aged well, even though he's still been rather fit at what he does, and that's Jean Claude Van Damme. I'm
Oh
surprised he
well,
still
the
moves the way that he does.
the problem with Van Damme is he's an asshole.
Yes, that
Okay,
I know. Yeah,
he's just a fucking ass. I've met him. He's just a fucking asshole. Okay, someone who did not get mentioned, who should get mentioned because this man is ageless, and to me, he is a human treasure. Is Morgan Freeman?
no, I mentioned him.
No, no. I mean, I forgot to mention him, and
Okay,
that's like my bad, because to me, he's one of my ultimate favorites. I mean, what a treasure that man is. The work he's done and the way he has handled himself in the industry as he has aged ever gracefully. I mean, not gratefully, gracefully.
yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. But like I said, if you
And
don't
we
have a
we
stardom
just
already,
lost one of our best. We just lost one of our best in the industry with James Earl Brown. We just lost him.
James Earl Jones. Yep. Yeah, you're
James Earl
absolutely
Jones.
right.
I'm sorry.
And
You're absolutely right.
don't give you even get me started because you guys are talking about Hollywood. But in my case, I grew up with all those John Earl Jones, Denzel Washington, etc. But I also grew up with Chavo del Ocho, you know, and people don't realize how big Chavo del Ocho was in Latin America, you know, to the point that it is today, till today, even after his main actor has already died. He died probably 5 6 years ago. That it's still being played on the TVs in Latin America, all across Latin America. Um, so yeah, I get exactly what you're saying, and here's the interesting part: for us outside the United States, it's even 10 times harder to set up our industries of art and cinema, etc., because pretty much Hollywood has monopolized that for the past 100 and some odd years.
And isn't that part of the problem with the whole ageist thing? It's
Yeah,
Hollywood has created or helped create and fed into an industry that says if you're not young, pretty, vital, sexy, energetic, you just don't count. You just don't matter, right?
pretty much. And it's unfortunately repeated outside of Hollywood too. You know, we've had great actors in Latin America who, for example, that actor, the Chavo, um, pretty much once he hit about 65, 70, he stopped working. Yeah, sure. He was interviewed, he was always in cameos, etc. But from that point on, he never actually was able to bring out something original. Why? Because attention was towards the young ones too. So he faded off, you know, and then died.
I'm curious about Resla. You actually, from what I understand in your industry, you're very involved with compliance and also helping people find their positions for employment and stuff like that. So you probably have a little bit different take on the aging thing, and how do you go about valuing people or for their positions, or is that not your job? But you do see a lot of it. I want to hear more on your side on this.
So, because now you're really getting into a legal aspect. Like I'm
I'm
not
not trying
I'm
to
not
corner you.
no no
I'm
no no
not
I'm not
trying to corner you.
I'm not like I don't work with like I can work with HRs, but that like I'm not in that area. So it's a little tricky field because there are things in terms of liability what you can't say. For me personally, for my hiring practices, even though it's not it's not viewed as the proper way because I guess things can go wrong. I don't really hire people based on their resume. I review your resume, I ask you questions about it, but that's not really what I'm looking for. I'm looking for characteristics. I'm listening to you to see if the right adjectives speak out to me. Because there are people who bullshit and lie all the time, but your character speaks volumes. And people don't hire like that anymore because it's all about who you know, now really what you know and what you've done. So when I speak to people, I don't speak to them based on where they're positioned. I speak to them based on their characteristics and their values. That's the way how I look at people in general. And I think it's an art that's being taken away because there are people now in corporate America. Now, I'm not gonna say it's all of them, but there are some places I've seen like you now have to interview with a script. You're not even really able to really deep dive into the question that you really want to go through. You go through interview training, which is a damn script. And if you somehow deviate off of that, anything can be used against you. I've seen people because they've asked a very weird question, had nothing to do with family or anything personal, whatever. But if for some reason, like I've been in a situation where I've sat with somebody who had to do an interview and I didn't know what their interview process was like. But to the fact where I'm trying to remember exactly how this went. Uh, to the fact where the person wasn't a good candidate, right? And then now you have to bring this person, or you have to bring this person in, or at least have a conversation with this person. This was an internal candidate, but the fact that you have to let them know gracefully that they are not going to be accepted for the job. Now, of course, the people who are curious enough are going to ask the question, well, what is it that you think that didn't make me a good enough candidate? And to be honest, you can't even be blunt. You really can't even just be honest and just say, look, you just didn't have enough experience in ABC. For some reason, that can be looked at as a problem. You you can't even use really the old trope of, "Well, we just had a better candidate," because that's now being used against you. Because it's like you don't give enough information, but you can't give too much information either. It's a weird slope that we go around, which is why now people who were direct managers who used to just do hiring processes and then speak to those internal candidates, now those candidates speak to either HRs or recruiters with inside the same very building. We're not even talking about external hires. We're talking about internal hires are now having to deal with third party representatives to be told why is it they didn't receive a different job? Because what can those representatives say? What can those recruiters say? Uh, I don't really have that information, so I'm sorry, and that's
That's
it. You
just
can't get mad
wrong.
at them.
That's wrong. That's just wrong. 30 years ago, when I was running a bar, I could say someone, you know what? You just don't fit with the rest of us. You're making some people feel uncomfortable. I gotta let you go. I'm sorry. We could get away with telling the truth back then.
Yeah, you can't. No, you cannot do that now.
That just reminded me of a movie. It was with George Clooney. He did
I
a
know,
movie.
I know the one you're talking about, and I loved it.
Yeah, no, no, no. What was the name of that? It was him. He was the guy who went all around firing people.
Hiring people. Yep, I loved it. I
Yeah,
forgot the
yeah,
name of the movie, but he had
yeah,
a
yeah.
great way of doing it.
I saw that movie a while back, and I also kind of enjoyed it because part of what I worked in customer service was also with HR. So I learned those tropes, and the what you were saying. I personally cannot fathom the third party firing of somebody. That is just telling me, oh, Up in the Air. Up in the Air is the name of the movie.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah, I just remembered it.
Yeah,
So
Henry. Yeah.
so it, this is my personal position, judgmental, but I think it's cowardice. You know, if you're gonna fire somebody, tell them why. At least give them that sense of direction. You know,
Yeah. Check
Well,
it.
is it cowardice on company policy, or is it cowardice on how the person that is forced to give the information delivers it?
it no,
Uh
it comes from company. In
it,
my
it's
position,
it's
company.
looked at on company policy. But look, well, it's been looked at company policy, but to be honest with you, it's because to be honest with you, people are not really raised or developed to take criticism, to take actual feedback, and therefore they leverage. So this training happens in a bad way on both sides. Management is not properly trained, so therefore they don't know how to use proper etiquette, and then employees are not trained, so therefore they don't know how to take criticism. So that's how you get people that want to do a whole big bunch of lawsuits. And if you do have someone who's properly trained and convey a message, other people feel like they take a personal shot to the point where, let's just say, if I have an employee, this thing because this doesn't really happen often, but if I have an employee who is a woman and I want to have a one-on-one conversation and tell them why they are not a candidate for whatever reason, whatever role, maybe they're not going to be the person who gets personally under me to be trained. I can deliver that message. They will understand, and I can give them feedback, and they understand what they can work on next time. Now, there are other people that because they don't get their way and they have not been emotionally conditioned, doesn't matter whether they're older or younger, what they will do, because I've had to go ahead and go through these investigations of saying that because they didn't get their way, they're going to quote make the person who is giving them the bad news suffer. So let's just say it's two people, but they're the opposite sex, right? Because there is a one-on-one exchange and because there are no cameras, because there is no audio, one person can say that the other person did something that would be considered misconduct. To the point where company policies need to get changed to say that if I'm going to interview somebody who's of the opposite sex, I must also have somebody else in the room with me who's of the same sex of that person. All because of feedback.
I got a
If I need
question.
to discipline somebody, same premise goes out the door.
This leads me to a big question, Resla. In your opinion, which generation and in which decade began the I can't take constructive criticism or coaching whole thing? I'm like, at which point did parents start saying, you know what, my kid is incorrectable? And the kid like wore that as armor. Am I hearing this wrong?
You really want
I'm
to
hearing
hear?
like like a couple decades worth of really bad parenting that did not raise their children to work effectively with the world.
You want to hear something?
Please educate me.
This happens with Xers, millennials, and Z. I've seen it across all three generations. People who are older than I am, I've seen them behave this way in my face. I shit you not.
Here's
It's
interesting.
beyond my comprehension. How the hell are you ever going to grow inside your comfort zone? And if a little constructive criticism is too far out of your comfort zone to handle, are you ever going to grow? I don't get it.
Here's a interesting part. That is something I've noticed of the United States culture. That is widely different in other countries. Well, in my expertise, Latin America, because here, First, we do not talk about millennials, X Geners, etc. We consider that categorization to be bullshit. But here, because in the case of my country, for example, we have a strong labor code that ensures a clear and protection of the workers. Give you an example. We receive a 13 salary at the end of the year, a complete 13 salary. It's called aguinaldo, and that's across the table on all the industries per law. We have rights like, um, you know, if there's going to be a firing, we yeah, just like in the United States, 2 week notice. And if it's not going to be a notice, then I get paid, type of thing. So here, the firing, even for U.S. companies that come down here, is a complete different experience. You sit down with a person, you tell them you're fired because of this, and this. This is the reasons we're firing you. And if the person has questions, fine. But yeah, if you do that in the in if you do not give clear explanations as to why you're firing, you're subjected yourself to getting your ass sued. Yes, it's a process that can last 10, 12 years, maybe. In some occasions less, some occasions more. Depends on how the workload is in the courts of jobs. So yeah,
So it's almost the opposite of here. There, you have to tell them why, and here, we're almost not allowed to tell them why.
Well, it
I'm
used to be like
confused.
that here. It used to be like that here, Rook. But now, even if people are given excuses, most of the time they're given such obscure information that they don't ever know what they did wrong. I've
And that's also they never have anything to turn around and try to use against the company or corporation that fired them, right?
Yeah. So why exactly would you
So
fire? I'm not exactly sure.
I
Now,
don't
unless there's actual clear information, typically, no, actually, let me take that back. Typically, if you're getting X'd, you know exactly why you're being clipped, even if you don't agree. But let's be honest, it doesn't really matter because most companies are at will employment.
And don't most of them have to give you like a couple strikes? Like you got to get written up
Yes,
once or twice or so.
yes.
Yeah, so
Normally,
it's
it's
like
the verbal, it's
you
written,
know
your
it's coming.
finals.
Right.
Yes.
It's on you to get your shit together or get
Well,
lost,
and also
basically.
it also depends where you are on the totem pole. There are some places that
Oh, good
where
point.
when you're on the totem pole, let's just say you may get your three strikes rule as an employee of the lower levels, but let's just say you are a supervisor or a manager. If the because this is why I also tell people it's about it's not about your company. Um don't have allegiance to your company, have allegiance to the people who are in the business. It's the people that's inside the business, it's all the relationships that you built that will be the people that protect you. Four walls is not going to protect you. So that means that if you have somebody who you do not like, that does not like you, you may have one time to get something with no other infractions ever built up, and that one time could be something that gets you clipped.
yeah, but that then goes towards the legislation and the capability of regulation of the government in itself. Because here,
Sir, in companies, it's called at will employment. For whatever reason, they are allowed to terminate you.
yeah, I know. It I see that as in my experience, etc., as absurd because it it clearly shows that the whim of the companies is set in such a way that we fire you under our own premises, but we don't give you information as to why we're firing you, so you don't get the chance to go to a court and protest your firing. You don't get the
Like I
day
said,
in the court.
typically, if you're going to be fired, they will give you the reasons why. But here's the thing: if you wish to appeal, you're still terminated. You can go through an
Yeah,
appeal process, but let's just be honest. Whoever you're about to see, the chances of you getting back your job is pretty much slim to none, and Slim just died. Sometimes it happens, but on most occasions, it does not. or the person doesn't even bother trying to fight for their job. What's going on, General Specific? How's everything going?
It's going really well. I was washing dishes and stuff. I just cleaned out my chicken pen, got that reloaded, just got fresh out of a shower, fresh and clean. Didn't get to listen for about the last half hour, though. I was in the shower and taking care of a few things. But I did want to say something about age and wisdom, and I heard a lot of you gentlemen talking. I had a 13-year break in military service. I was in 89, got out in 92 after the first Gulf War, and then was out as a civilian for 13 years. And during the resurgence, I guess, or when they were swelling over and trying to send pretty much anyone that would could wear a uniform and hold a weapon, they were taking old hats like me back, because I tried getting in after 9/11, and they weren't taking regular Army back into the regular Army. I guess you had to go like National Guard. National Guard dude never called me back. Didn't even think about reserves. So I said, I guess they got all they need. So I went about my business, and 13 years later in 05, I got back in. I was a year older than my first sergeant, and I came back in as an E2. So I'm a year older than a guy who's the top dog in that particular battalion, right? The first sergeant of that battalion or that troop, right? And you don't want to talk about. I don't have a problem being mentored by people that can mentor me, that are capable of mentoring me. If they have something to teach me, I want to learn. It was awkward though when you had specialist E4 talking to me like I was old enough to be some of these guys' dads, in some cases, and they're like, hey, I'm sorry, Private Bryant, hey, dude, don't worry about it, man. That's the rank. I respect the rank. You got something to show me. I got something to learn. Let's do this. And I eventually became an NCO again, became a sergeant, and well, not again, but for the first time. And it was different leading soldiers, and leading is an interesting thing because we all think that we all were raised the same way until we meet new people. And I think I've said this before. And I think that was the biggest shock to me. But let's talk about wisdom and exuberance. I'm sure you gentlemen here have all heard of old bull, young bull. As a young bull is getting all excited, he's like, hey, look at all those cows down there. Let's go down and get us one. Hey, come on. He's like, whoa, man, slow down. Let's take our time. Let's walk up real slow so we don't scare them. Instead of getting one of them, let's get them all. So instead of scaring them off and only getting one. So that's the difference between wisdom and exuberance, I guess. But I appreciate listening to the conversation.
Yeah, we were having a good set of that before, and that was something I was mentioning. That's how we kind of got into the whole aspect of work as well, because exactly for the things that you mentioned. For some reason, if it's not like a physically labor intensive job, which, let's be honest, like a lot of the corporations that we have right now are not really labor intensive. It's all about what you keep in intelligence. But the idea that you could either be in a social group, or rather you could be in a department with a whole bunch of people who are younger, and you sit in the meeting, for some reason, unless you are the person leading that team, your views and opinions and your experience can sometimes be overshadowed. I've seen this happen. I'm like, this person knows what they're talking about, but yet I've seen younger people overtalk them because they're older. And I'm like, well, what's going on here? Why they're not being respected for the experience and wisdom that they have?
I think part of it is the delivery, to be honest. And I'll give you a perfect example right here in YouTube. I might have the perfect answer for something in a discussion, but are you going to listen to my answer, or are you going to listen to Resto's answer? Okay, and I'm not trying to take anything from Resto. Resto might have the same answer, but it's going to be more valued by him to a certain age group or a certain dynamic. Where if I'm with people closer to my own age, they're probably going to value my opinion more than a younger man's or woman's opinion. And if I'm in a circle with younger people, they're probably going to value the younger person's opinion, even if it's the same opinion. I'm talking via delivery, right? Two people might be the same. We might have the same message, but if one person gives it to you in a way that you're more comfortable hearing and digesting, that's going to be more valuable to you. Period. I mean, that's kind of unarguable, right?
Yeah, it's a very interesting point, and if I may respond to that, probably the best boss that I ever had knew how to talk to me. Knew not to come at me like a bull head on, because I'm like, all right, let's go. You know what I mean? I don't care. I don't need this job. I'll get another one. You want to fight? We'll fight. But a good boss knows how to deal with different people where they're at, not where they want them to be. And he, unfortunately, he was about, I don't know, about 5 or 6 years, maybe even 7 years my junior. But he was a chef owner, very talented chef. He ended up dying from a nasty brain tumor. I think at about the age of 43, I think it was. No, 47. He was 47 when he passed. Really tragic. I mean, the guy was doing hydroelectric. I mean, up in Vermont, just revitalizing, like clean energy, owning many restaurants, opening up delis. I mean, just a mover, shaker. This guy just was going into politics to do good, actually, to try to do good, positive change. William Fitzpatrick Scully. He was the originator of the Pangea restaurant in North Bennington, Vermont. You might be able to read his obituary or something like that, or pull him up. Classy guy, just knew how to talk to me. And I'll tell you what, you want to talk about getting the best out of me? I'd have chewed a doorknob off for that dude. And I would have buried the bodies in shallow graves and not asked a whole lot of questions, and in 5 different counties for that man. Because there was a loyalty, because I showed him loyalty. He returned that loyalty. And allegedly, I've never buried any bodies in 5 different counties. I did one time
Oh, we're only joking here.
in 4 counties. But
We only joke here. It's okay. None of this is true.
do you know what I'm saying, though? I mean, the right leader can really bring out the best in you. And if they want to bring out the best in you, let's talk about customer service. Talk about a dying art. And it's people our age that give the best customer service, in my opinion. Below, I think some of it's lost on these kids. I'm not trying to cash shade on the youngers, but go ahead.
I think most of it's lost on these kids, and I'm going to piggyback on that right now. And Resla, just shut me the hell down if I'm wrong. But right now, I see 4. I won't say middle-aged. I will say mostly mature guys here on panel, and I don't hear any of the younger generation telling us what they think. We're talking about what we see and what we experience, but I don't see anybody in the younger chat stepping up and say, "Well, this is how we view you old fucks."
Okay, there are definitely those who do so on the internet. Absolutely. And actually there are those who do it in public too. Maybe never on the job, but I ran into different social settings out in bars or even out in public settings where that maybe having a conversation, maybe an older guy comes and approaches about something and they just get wildly disrespectful. The first thing comes up, you out of touch, you old head, da 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 da, whatever, and it's just like you're not
Oh
even
no,
thinking about
I've seen that in public. I just meant
yeah.
in chat. I was hoping that someone would come up and say, "Well, here's how we view you, and here's why."
Oh, if you're saying chat, I would have to
Yeah,
agree.
yeah.
I have
Come
to
on
agree.
up here and tell us why we're not worth this shit
Well,
anymore. I'm not
well,
going to beat you down. I will get down off this panel and give you a speaking point if you can explain to us how come we're not worth this shit to you anymore.
well, look, well. Let me give you this much. Let me just say this much. It's because they don't, not say they, but there are plenty of young people that just don't view the internet the same way how we do. Some people, whether older or younger, or whatever, they simply view the internet as entertainment. It's just their TV. Some people just use the internet as education. Some people use it as actually a way to have civil discourse. And I think when it comes to a lot of younger people, they're more interested in, let's be honest, entertainment and debauchery.
I wanted to touch on something that Todd said. Like I mentioned before, I don't know if Todd heard me, but I did 15 years as customer service. But some of that was interesting to me. You know, my first experience in customer service was with sports books. So I was the guy that North Americans would call to place their bets. You know, give me straight on the Mets at one minus 135 type of thing, or give me two round robin barley with the Giants and the Jets. So that was pretty much straightforward. You did not need any customer service per se. You just needed to take down the bets and do it as quickly as possible. But then I went into the funny thing is the top customer service I had to give was actually for porn sites. I was the person that the mother called and says, "I have this weird charge on my card. What is it?" Ma'am, do you have a 13 to 16-year-old kid in the household by any chance? Yes. That well, ma'am, how can I explain this in a very way possible? I know you understand what poverty is, correct, ma'am? Yes. Your son has entered it. And it's just like, what? He used my credit card to pay for a porn site? Yes, ma'am. Type of thing. But yeah, I mean, I guess the art. But what I was trying to get to is when in one of the businesses, I cannot mention the name for it because I signed an NDA. They had offices in the United States. So whenever there was a high situation, we had to do conference call between us, the customer service here, to the United States, and we had to stay on the line. And occasionally, I would see that the U.S. customer service, some did not have that humanity to them. While here, we were trying to treat everybody as best possible. Yes, stick with the company policies as much as you can. If you can find an exception, try to do it. If you can help, help. If you can't, then make them understand that there's not much you can do, type of thing. But then in the United States, whoa, I've heard, in this particular one that I could mention, Capital One, I heard getting chewed up because somebody was claiming charges of a particular card, and the president of the United States told him, "Too bad, you used it. Fuck off," type of thing. After I had to spend like hour and a half with that person, trying to calm them down, trying to understand their situation, etc., explain to them what the policies
And
were.
and this is generational customer service, right? I mean, I was raised to where you learn how to do the job, and if your job is being nice to people and putting up with their bullshit, that's your job, and you would learn it. Nowadays, generation is like, yeah, no, I'm not cut out for that. I'm gonna move on and find something else. That's fine. If that's not your bag, that's not your bag. But it seemed like something has happened in the last couple decades where people are no longer willing to adapt to their environment. They think that they are above their environment, whether or not they have the financial capability to change their environment. They still try to act like they're above their environment and they're above learning how to work it out until they can financially make the choices they want to make to put themselves in a different environment. Am I misreading this?
What what would you say? Well, this is off topic, um, but the offshoring of customer service, has that created an impact? Because I've noticed that United States local customer service has dwindled in the past 30 years. So maybe because that has dwindled, the experience of customer service and providing customer service has
Well,
been given to the upper.
are you talking face to face customer service, or are you talking like on, trying to get a hold of somebody on the phone when something breaks down. I mean, to
The
me,
second one.
they're a little bit different. Okay.
Yeah, the second one. No. Yeah, person to person, that's still very much alive everywhere. But I was referring to the second one.
Well, okay. Well, my question. No, this is taking us way off topic. So stop me, Resla, if you want to. But my question with that is, isn't that being farmed out by the corporations? I can pay someone overseas less money per phone call than I would have to pay someone here in North America per phone call to answer that phone and deal with the issue. So isn't that a corporate thing rather than an age or generational thing?
Yeah, probably. Probably. I worked for 15 years because of that, and I gained money because of that. So I'm biased in that way. I'm
Oh, no
glad.
judgment, no judgment here.
Yeah,
I'm just not sure how this.
The
I'm
the
not
answer
trying to
to that question is
chastise you
yes.
in any way. I'm just not sure if this is like an age thing,
No,
right?
it's not really an age thing. That's strictly a
yeah.
corporatized way. Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, let's
that's
be
why I
honest.
get off topic.
Let's be honest. If you're paying more for, if you're paying more for the U.S., if you have a U.S. company, you're paying for more, and you want 24-hour service, around the clock service, then you're most likely going to want to have a service industry until maybe about 7 o'clock or whatever, and then you'll pick it up around the other side of the world where it's cheaper, but they can still run that service for you to meet that 24-hour demand. Yes, that's absolutely a corporate decision.
Is that how they're working it now? Okay, thank you for the education. I appreciate it.
Yeah, sorry, that went off topic. My bad.
No, you put me and you together on the same train, and we're rolling off the rails, bro. It's
Yeah.
not you. It's not you. We're a tag team mess here.
But yeah, so trying to remember what I was talking about some time ago. I know we dived into other topics. I feel like there was something I wanted to mention, but we were talking about other topics, and I kind of lost it, just a little bit. Oh,
We're
the part I was mentioning before was the part of older people. Not that there's a problem with older people being in a mentorship position, but how not a lot of people don't. There are a lot of people who don't believe that they want to be forced to be in a mentorship position. They're like, I get that I'm older, but I don't want to be forced to have to teach people. I still want to work and be in the game like everybody else. And I think for a lot of people, it's just really about, you know, still pursuing those personal goals that you have, or just redefining what you think is relevant. Because like I said, there's some people that they get into that, they get pushed, or rather they jump into that mentorship role just to stay relevant. And I think that is so messed up.
isn't that egotism though?
Sometimes it's just survivability. Like, I mean, let's be honest. If you are, let's just go back to that same boardroom where basically everybody else is around you is rather younger. You feel like now you're kind of getting slowly pushed out. How do you stay relevant? How do you make sure that you still keep a foothold and keep your position if you don't put yourself in a position where in a light that you will still be seen? That's why a lot of people will now start entering mentorship roles, even if they know themselves, or they literally tell me in the back end, I hate mentoring.
Well, in that situation, isn't it more of like you said before, survival? You don't have a choice. If you want to keep bringing a paycheck in, you're going to have to do this to earn it. Is that what you're saying?
Unfortunately, people get pushed. They feel like they need to be pushed in that position because it's not about competency. They're being looked at based on their age because there's this stigma of you when you're older, you're not looked at with the same value as someone who is young, who's youthful, who has vibrance, and that's BS. But the idea that there are
No,
corporations that don't want to behave, that don't want to just straight out admit that there's a factum of ageism is BS because they do it.
NorCal Jim brings up a question. In terms of the corporate worlds, isn't it cheaper to bring in the newer, younger than to keep the older, smarter?
No, no, it is
No,
not.
it's
No,
not. Okay,
it is
okay,
not.
okay. Well, thank you,
Well,
because it kind of made sense to me when I read it.
Because
Well,
if this was the older, if this was the more stabler time where giving your time and sweat and dedication to a company would be the thing that will harness you that area of expertise, then absolutely. But in the hopscotch economy that we have now, you stay somewhere, you leave for a bigger bag, because when you go to that next company, you're going to get paid tremendously more money than the last place you were at. There are people who jump into management positions just to be in for a year, just so they can pad that on their resume, to then hopscotch from that company, because the next company is going to be definitely looking for somebody who's been a quote manager. And now you've only spent 1 year being a manager, but that other place is going to think that you've been doing this for a while, and you're padding up your salary.
Well, it's interesting, and if I may to respond to the, isn't it? Wouldn't it be cheaper to bring a younger person in? I would have said maybe 10 years ago it would have seemed cheaper. Um, Now, actually, my daughter makes a lot more than. It's insane how much kids are getting paid now,
Yep.
and she happens for a millennial. She's actually got her S together. Unlike a lot of them are just clueless, but they're just chucking money at these kids. I would say in the interim, it would seem like it's a savings to a number cruncher, but how do you replace that wisdom? How do you replace that knowledge? How do you replace that efficiency? How do you replace that mentorship or the tutelage that you can give the youngers coming up? And unfortunately, a lot of these companies are having the older crew train their replacements, and in some cases, those replacements aren't even Americans. And they're just coming over and taking the job and working for a lot less money in some cases. Now, I think that aspect of it could be considered predatory, but it's a benefit to those people, so they take the job. That said, I look at it like I'm listening to you, Resla. I mean, I'm learning, dude, like constantly, and you're sharp, dude. And it's like, and I'm kind of one of those odd ducks where I'm not interested in money. I don't care about the money. Money's basically irrelevant to me, other than the fact that you need it as a social lubricant. You need it to survive. That's not my priority. My priority is connections, networking, and I think those things are probably far more advantageous, especially in when the S hits the F kind of scenario. Knowing your neighbors, knowing who can trade some eggs for some milk, you know what I mean? When there's nothing left at the stores, having that rapport. Um, but I feel like I'm learning a lot of how to value myself higher than what I've been valuing myself. And I think that there's a lot of us that'll sacrifice and give and give and give. And there's a lot of companies out there that'll just take and take and take.
Absolutely.
And that's a big thing for women. If the ladies out there, I've noticed that. Look, I understand agreeability is supposed to be a feminine trait. A lot of these women I've noticed, and I hope this is on topic. Stop me if it's way off, but I've noticed a lot of women. A man will be about 70% sure that he could do the job that he's asking for, or to be able to get the raise that he's asking for, and the 30% is cocksure, meaning his confidence, he's cocksure. You know what I mean? Like I got this. It's bravado, right? Whereas often women they wait till they're in the 90 to 95 percentile of being like, I know I can do this job. I know that I'm worth asking to do this job. So women tend to be, in my opinion, often far more competent with the same amount of time spent in a particular skill or trade or whatever it is, as long as it's not like a manual labor kind of competition thing.
Um, I
Talking,
I
go ahead.
agree with that. I kind of agree, like, because I will tell you right now that when I tend to see a lot of young ladies up there, it's for some reason there's just not a lot of risk taking. The idea of saying that I will apply for a job because I know what works, or I know I've seen it work, versus I've seen guys who will turn around and apply for a position and know that, and they like, I'm going to fake it, I'm going to finesse it, I'm going to learn everything about it quickly. Like, they'll go in with no experience and build everything on the fly, and that's not a risk that I see a lot of young ladies willing to take. So you're right about that.
So I guess
And let me to put it on topic. That's exactly what I see across the ages. Older to my older gals to my younger gals.
you know what's
Unless it's
interesting.
a for sure thing, they don't take the risk.
Mhm.
And I really wish they would. There's so much reward in it.
You know what's interesting on this? Because at the end, there's it depends on the industry. I'm going to give an example. Uh, if you're working on the line on the kitchen, and you are somebody who has 25, 30 years of experience in the line kitchen, and suddenly the 20-year-old kid comes in, um, and you put to mentor that kid. Obviously, the main idea or the main thought that's going to pop up is this kid going to replace me? Am I fading out? Or in the same thing on the context of construction work. You know, I did my share of construction, but if you ask me, can you handle the workload of construction today that you used to handle when you were 18, 19, 20? I, the answer is no, I can't. You know, or customer service, either in person, for example, being a cashier on a supermarket or a restaurant, etc. I think the context defines to us how ageism is seen. You know,
But it
um,
is isn't this exactly the point Resla was just making about we might find ourselves forced into a position of mentorship. I have to train the guy that's going to take my job. Exactly. That to me, that's what I think of when Resla posts the question, are we forced into mentorship regretfully or resentfully? Maybe we don't want to have to teach the guy that's going to take our job. At least in construction, there are options to where, if you've been if you've been doing construction for 15 years and you haven't learned how to go get your license to be an inspector and just drive around and look at everybody else's shit all day, that's your fault. That's on you. Do you want to step up or do you want to stay a worker ant your whole life? And if you're going to stay a worker ant your whole life, then blame the next level of worker ant. I'm not going to have any pity on you.
Hmm.
But if you are going to try to move up and either take on that mentorship role or, replace yourself, move on to the next step up or the next best job. I remember when I was working construction, I'm out there, pulling up the chain link and stuff so the guys can pour the concrete. And I'm looking at the guy on the concrete, the inspector. I'm like, this guy's only 4 more years older than I am. And what does he do? He drives from job site to job site. He bullshits with the boss and he writes stuff down on a clipboard. Now, if I can't learn how to do that in 4 years of construction, that's on me. That's my bad for not wanting to better myself. So generationally, losing my language now. Um, I don't see a whole lot of that work ethic. And yes, I am an old military guy, and I am an old football coach and jock and bullshit like that. So I come from a certain mentality that says you got to fight for everything you want. And whether you're an athlete or not, or you've come from that kind of history or not, if you don't fight for what you want, you don't deserve it.
Hmm.
And we're going to talk about ageism. My generation, most of us fought for what we wanted. And I don't see a whole lot of fighting for what you want in the youngest. So when I hear great stories about forgive me sir, I don't know your name, with the white beard, the military veteran, thank you for your service, I'm an old Marine, God bless you. When I hear stories about your daughter, rising up that fast, that well, that encourages me for the future. And that's that future I was talking about trying to vote the right way for earlier, Resla. And that's where we read into the fallacy of what does an old man know what it's going to be like in 20 years? We don't know. but I do not see the need to provide my own future in some of the generations a little bit younger than we are, if that's relevant to the conversation. I see a lot of people saying, you know what, y'all owe me some shit.
Well, I apologize, Ditzer, because I do have to dip out. I don't know if you saw my back chat there in private.
I did.
First off, I want to say thank you so much for having me up on panel. I wish I could stay a little bit longer. I think, again, another fruitful conversation with Resla. I'm probably going to be a big cheerleader for your channel, man. I'm
I
gonna
appreciate it.
try to get that word out and get more people, because we need more conversations like this. I will say this, and I mean this very, very, very seriously. We are going to be loath to be missing, as much as boomers tick me off, as much as they get on my skin, underneath my skin. I'm definitely already missing the greatest generation. But we're going to be screwed without boomers. They're very selfish, but they're insanely competent. They're insanely competent. Jacks of all trades, most of them. Can do pretty much. We got kids now, millennials and Zoomers, can't figure out how to change a tire. I mean, men allegedly in Minecraft. So these are supposed to be men that can't even figure out how to change a tire on the car. So I can't thank the boomers enough, and I also am going to be very sad to see the boomers slowly sunset, as it were. I'm right behind them. Gen X might be the last generation that has some damn backbone. But we're going to miss the competency of the boomers. I love you guys. Boomers are probably one of my bigger audience members. But do better, boomers. Stop being selfish. Stop. It's better to burn out than it is to fade away. Stop that. Leave something for your kids.
Right on. Right on. Rage harder against the dying of the light, right?
I think it's going to be a cultural shock, but in the sense of what Todd was saying, in Latin America, it's completely different. In the sense that culturally, we have a base where we have to protect our elders. That's ingrained to us from the get-go. No matter what country in Latin America, the majority have that ingrained so hard into them that even the newer generations, that is why in Latin America you see a lot of 20s, 25, 30s still living either close to the parents or with the parents. And some of them are great lawyers and done great stuff or whatever. But you get that ingrained culturally into you from the get-go. So as you become older, you realize that you are going to be the one to be taken care of in that aspect. And in second sense, since here we don't care about the categorization of generations. We consider that to be pseudoscientific. It's worthless. To us, it is the constant reintegration and capability of our communities to the elders always provide the base of mentoring in order to hopefully continue advancing towards improvements into that sense. So that cultural sense is completely apart from what happens in the United States. And in fact, some of that happens a lot for Latin Americans who live in the United States and come back, is that they have to unlearn everything they learned in the United States in order to live back into the Latin American communities. So that concept of ageism is interesting. Yeah, there are a couple things that are very similar towards the United States, especially in the workload type of aspect, because once you reach my age, 40, 50, you're less considered valuable. But that is also because a lot of the companies that are hiring are transnational, are the United States, Canadian, etc. But then on the local sense, you see that you have that mixture. People are hiring people of all ages. They're hiring because not because they're younger or older, because they're gonna give something to the business, you know. So I guess
That's what's
that's
that's what's up. And again, I think we had really good topics of what we were talking about today. And I know this is a big thing for a lot of people. I wanted to. I know it's going to be a little bit touchy to some people because we're all facing age. We're all facing age, and we have to figure out what we're going to do. And I like the fact that you guys really brought a lot of good perspectives in reference to the conversation, and even if we got off a little bit, I love the fact of the things that we actually talk about. Oh, and shout out to journalist specific as well for showing up. I put his link in the chat for any that you guys want to check him out. I know he's got a show that he's going to be doing later today as well, so I'm gonna check that out for a little bit. I'm also going to be panel hopping, or rather channel hopping, to check out a lot of people who I know are doing things even right now. Um, but I'm gonna close this one out so I can give us all a little bit of break, and I'll let everybody, stretch their feet or do whatever they're gonna do into the next one. Is there anything you want to say, Disto, before we take off? Ruck, before we take off?
Go ahead, D. Did so? Go ahead.
no. I love coming here, Resla. You know me. I'll have conversation with general specific. We try to. We have a conversation to go over, but anyhow, uh, again, I hope that my contributions as somebody of American but outside of the United States helps. I guess that uh, the more involvement of Latin American towards United States also helps a lot to improve and look at things differently in that sense. So thank you for having me. Thank you for giving me the chance to speak. And Ruck, if you and I stay on the same channel, you and I would go on for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours nonstop. So good to meet another person like me who just goes off.
That's what's up. They were stopping by.
Thank you.
Ruck.
First thing I'm gonna say, D. Yeah, you're absolutely correct. I think we have a kind of a similar history in service and stuff, so we probably have a lot of stories to share, and that would be a lot of fun sometime. But nobody wants to hear us ramble on about that shit. Resla, I always enjoy a conversation with you. Um, to me, it's important about how a train gets down its track. I don't have to agree with the station that arrives at, but if I respect how it got down the tracks getting there, it's valuable to me, and I'm gonna learn something from it. And you and I seem to quite often look out of a different set of eyeballs or different binoculars, but we seem to arrive at a very similar train station, if not the train station at the end of the day. So I always enjoy any conversation with you, my man. And thank you for the opportunity for an old man to get up here and say, well, here's what I've seen on a topic like this. Mucho apreciado. Thank you for your consideration. Keep doing what you're doing. I'm always going to follow. I'm always going to hit that like. I'm always going to share.
I appreciate you. Thank you for sharing your thoughts, man. Thank you. Your opinions are very much appreciated. Um, so before we wrap things up today, I want to leave you guys with at least one thought. And the idea is that aging isn't something that we need to fear. Um, it's something that I think we need to really turn around and embrace, just wholeheartedly. Um, now, it's proof that it's proof that you live and you love and you learn. But at the end of the day, isn't that isn't that what life all about? Isn't it about choices, trade off, and of course the people that we share an experience with while we're here, while we have the time? Isn't that the most important thing? The experiences that we have. And I know some people just don't want to be a burden, especially when we start talking about end of life. You know, for the family and the friends and the communities that also have to, quote, look after us. If you make it that far, because the truth of the matter is that nothing is guaranteed. Nothing is. And if that is the case, I would like for you to spend your time, Marcus, I'm closing out. uh, I would like you guys to spend your time just being grateful of where you are right now, not necessarily where you've been or how you think that other people should experience what you're doing now. I think you should really take the opportunity to enjoy and love life the way you have it now. That's gonna be my particular thoughts. Thank you for tuning in, guys. I appreciate you guys for, of course, coming in, seeing how everything's going. I'm gonna be bouncing around on other people's channels. I'm gonna check out OG Do 30, who's got something going on, as well as I'm going to check out Generally Specific because I know he's got something coming up as well. Resto, we're doing Mel today as well, right? The psychology, if I'm correct. I think that's tonight as well. I'm gonna be up for a while, so if that's a thing and that popped up on my notification, I'll be there as well. And until then, guys, like, share, subscribe if you haven't already. Share this kind of content with people that you think can really. You said Mel's on today. Yes. Okay. Cool. That can really use these type of tools and actually conversations to become a little bit more enlightened. I will catch you on the next one, and of course, guys, stay opinionated. Later, y'all.